everyone. In this video, I am breaking down a comic called Babs, published by Ahoy Comics and written by comic legend Garth Ennis. Garth Ennis is one of my favorite comic book writers, the writer of Preacher, The Boys, and Hellblazer, which I've also covered here on my channel, so let's check out my videos of those. But I was pretty excited to see that Garth Ennis was doing a humor book at Ahoy that is kind of a parody of Red Sonja. And for those of you not familiar with Red Sonja, she's kind of like a female Conan the Barbarian in a way. So I was pretty excited that Garth Ennis was doing a sword and sorcery book here, and we're going to get to see him tell a story in this completely different world than we're used to Garth Ennis covering. And Garth Ennis does an amazing job in this book. It has his typical raunchy humor that is very funny and kind of pushes the envelope a bit sometimes. So there is some really good jokes in here, but it is also has some really great action too. And I think has an overall pretty good story in here with a beginning, middle, and end and a satisfying conclusion. So yeah, it is a good time, and I think you are all going to really enjoy this one. Now, also, I have covered a few other Ahoy comics here on my channel. All of their books are usually pretty funny. They're kind of veer in the humor publication side. So I've covered Second Coming and a book called The Wrong Earth. So check out my coverage of those too. But yeah, let's dive into it. Garth Ennis's Babs. Babs, written by Garth Ennis, art by Jacen Burrows. Babs Issue 1, and I am a material girl. We see the female barbarian Babs riding through the forest. The narration introduces us to her thusly. And so came Babs, raven-haired, suspicious-minded, wielder of an okay sword, laugher of a laugh so filthy it had turned 10 priests to the study of the porno gospels. Fair of face yet shit out of luck, a wanderer, a mercenary, a goblin stomper, a dragon dodger, a lover but a leaver, a breaker of hearts and a jumper from windows, known to the pikemen of the marches as a tall, cool tankard of ale. Other names were whispered at her passing, like Vixen, Strumpet, Temptress, or Teaser of the Member. Yet among the folk who spoke such words, the knights and the warlocks, the elves of the forest and the kings under the hills, there was one thing that saw all these philosophers united. None of the little bitches dared say any of that shit to her face. As Babs rides her horse in her armor, she complains, "Ugh, this goddamn scale mail is gonna chew my fucking nipples off." Babs, she eventually arrives in the nearest town, at a bar called the Bloody Bladder. There, she meets her fellow barbarian friend named Izzy. The two of them catch up and share stories. Izzy tells Babs about recently when she robbed the dragon named Shagbat. She managed to escape the dragon with a whole bunch of gold. It was pretty good loot. But then, as she was riding away, she accidentally steered her horse and carriage right through a whole bunch of short creatures that she refers to as leprechauns. Izzy explains, "I had to fork over the entire horde in compensation, so now I'm back to square one. I can't tell you how long it took me to track down that goddamn map of his lair, too." As the two of them drink and talk some more, they eventually get confronted by an orc named Mork the Orc, backed up by his band of ruffians. Mork confuses Babs for another barbarian chick named Grislock. Mork accuses Babs, saying, "You're Grislock, Grislock the Barbarian, damsel who slew her father King Grislock and took his name and sword and armor for her own, and now wanders the wastes as an outcast and a traitor, Grislock." Izzy asks Babs, "What have you been up to?" Babs answers, "That's not me." Babs then tells Mork, "You've got me confused with someone else, whatever your name is." Mork chimes back in, "I'm Mork the Orc, and these are the dudes. Listen, don't try and wriggle out of it. The fur cloak, the sword, the armor, the torques, you fit the description to a T. And we know there's not a slayer or a reavier or a witch queen or a great worm in the land that we haven't heard of. We know everyone in every age from bronze to silver to gold. Babs counters, just about every warrior chick I've ever met matches that description. It's kind of the done thing. Besides, if this Grislock took her dad's armor for his own, how could she possibly look like me? Or did he have it all going up front as well? She refers to her armor she's wearing, how it just kind of covers her breasts and not much else. Mork retorts, she adapted it, obviously. You can't hide from the truth, lady. Babs asks, oh, for fuck's sake, what is it you want exactly? Mork and his whole crew then explain, we don't like the girlification of Grislock. We liked it better when Grislock was a guy. We don't like bullshit changes, just for the sake of fashion, especially when the girl kills the guy. Babs is not scared of this crew of dumb men. She laughs in their face and says, get the fuck out of here, hobbit cock, before I beat you assholes to death with each other. Mork and his pals then point to Izzy, who's black, and they say, and you know what we like least of all? Grislock hanging with someone like her, because the old Grislock would never have done that. Babs then stands up, angry. Izzy, she just laughs and says, oh, I think I'm gonna quite enjoy what's about to happen. All of a sudden, Clint, the troll, steps up to Babs. The two of them are staring each other down, but then Babs reaches into Clint's mouth and grabs his tonsils and yanks at them. Clint then grossly vomits all over the place. All of a sudden, a fight kicks off. But these dudes are no match for Babs. Babs quickly punches them in the face, kicks them in the nuts, and one of the guys she manages to grab and shove his face into a cup on the bar. The cup then gets launched in the guy's throat and remains stuck there. Once Babs is clearly mopped to the floor with all of these guys, she tells Mork, you're gonna have to pay a tax. You behaved like a twat tax. Mork, fully beaten, decides to hand over whatever money and stuff he has over to Babs. It's not that much money, but enough to cover her and Izzy's bar tab for the night. Mork also handed over a mysterious blue potion. Babs sniffs it and asks, what's this? Mork answers, it's a dick enlargement potion. Izzy laughs and Babs questions, did it work? Mork answers, I haven't tried it yet. I bought it off an impish mage. He said I could get amazing results with this one simple elixir. But I mean, you know what those people are like. All that trickster shit. Does he mean a big dick by imp standards? Or, I don't know, a mouse? Or, what if it comes out the size of a barn or something and I got stuck like that? Babs is gonna keep the potion. Maybe she can sell it to someone. Babs then tells Mork to go away, and she tells him, now go ponder your lesson. Mork asks, what lesson? Babs answers, the girlification of your pathetic bitch ass. Now fuck off. Babs and Izzy, they drink further into the night, and then in the morning they part ways. So in the morning, Babs is now on her own, although she is talking to her magical talking sword named Barry. Barry the sword. Babs with a crossbow shoots a squirrel, and her talking sword Barry asks, holy shit, what did you do that for? Babs answers, I want its hide to line my bra. Izzy said tree runts are the best. Babs asks Barry, I thought you were being quiet last night. Barry answers, well, you two were so busy with your girl talk, I didn't really think I had anything to add. Babs responds, oh, so you were sulking. What kind of magic sword gets intimidated by girl talk? Barry explains he wasn't intimidated. Babs and Izzy's conversation was dumb. Who's the hottest male barbarian? Using the blood of the vanquished as eyeliner so last year. Barry then complains, I mean, I'm not expecting sparkling repartee from someone who ran away from the Princess Academy when she was 12, but you could at least make an effort. Educate yourself. Read some poetry. Learn about the current tidings. Babs dismisses this, saying, poetry's for wood elves. Oh, look who I see. Babs spots another tree runt. and she wants to shoot and kill it so that she can pad the other side of her bra with it. Babs, she manages to hit the creature, and then when she goes to retrieve it, she finds it sticking out of the side of a bear, and the bear roars at her. Babs humorously does not refer to this creature as a bear. Instead, she yells, "Land shark!" and she begins running away as the bear chases after her. So Babs runs and gets over to her horse, and then, holding Barry the sword, she prepares to slice the bear with it. But Babs is obviously nervous, as taking down this bear is going to be pretty tough. Barry the sword tells her, "Babs, seriously, that thing will snap me in two over your head and stick both ends up your ass. You should just run." So Babs hops on her horse and begins riding as fast as she can, and the bear is still chasing after her. As they are continuing to ride, Barry the sword tells Babs, "Just give it the horse and run like hell. It's pissed off. All it wants is something to kill. Babs, I'm serious. Give it the frickin' horse." We jump away from this action though and return to Mork the orc and his dudes. They are pretty disappointed in themselves for having Babs get the upper hand on them. One of the guys even has that cup still stuck down his throat, and he can't get it out. He tries to speak. One of the other dudes says, "It's really in there. I mean, we poked a hole in the other end. Maybe we can, feed you some mush or something down there later." Mork, reflecting on their defeat, tells the rest of his friends his theory. He says, "I've just realized who's to blame for this, for what happened to us. I've been thinking and I figured out who's behind it. It's the Deep Realm." When Mork says the Deep Realm, it's clearly a kind of parody of people that blame the Deep State for stuff. Mork's friend asks, "What's the Deep Realm, Mork?" Mork answers, "Oh, how can you not have heard of the Deep Realm? They're the people on the inside, the ones who decide everything. They're the ones who run stuff, really, but they do it on the sly, so dudes like us never even know. They're why cool guys like Grizzlock get killed off and replaced by his slut daughter again and again until everything's different and all the stuff we like is gone, and they send magical constructs like that bitch last night to keep us in line. I mean, do you think if she was a normal chick she could have beat us?" Mork's friends ask, why? Mork answers, "I mean, to keep us down, dude. They can't let us develop our full potential. I mean, can't you see it? If it wasn't for the shit they put on our path and the way they stack the deck, the world wouldn't be the way they wanted it. We'd be kings. We'd get all the treasure and magic weapons and comely pussy we're really entitled to. But the thing about the Deep Realm is they're so insidious. It's like they hide in plain sight so you don't know that they're there at the same time, and you can't fight them. It's like the whole thing was fixed in advance since you were born. And here's something even more unfair." As Mork keeps talking, all of a sudden, a big army of people arrive in town. This army of knights seem impressive. One of the knights announces their arrival to the town, saying, "Hear ye, hear ye, let it be known and bear witness to the coming of the Ivory Knights of Unblemished Virtue and their dreadlord, Tiberius Toledo." The leader of this gang of knights, Tiberius Toledo, rides in shining armor on a horse. Mork, impressed by this strong man, says, "I'm not sure who these guys are, but they look like our kind of guys." Back over to Babs. Babs managed to escape the land shark, and we see her hiding up in a tree with Barry, her sword, and her horse. I don't know how she got her horse up in the tree as well, but she did. Babs then starts arguing with her sword, Barry. She says, "You're the worst frickin' magical sword in the land." Barry gets angry. Babs continues, "You're not extra powerful, you can't cut through anything special, you can't shoot out flames or lightning bolts, you can't even warn me of impending danger. All you do is talk shit. Lots of it, every minute of every day." Barry the sword starts flipping Babs off, saying, "Hey, fuck you! I gave you important tactical advice, you ungrateful cow, which saved your life, I might add." Babs responds, "What? You just said run. You think I hadn't already figured that out myself? And in case you haven't been paying attention, it was the horse that saved us." As Babs and Barry continue arguing on, they still have to stay in that tree as the land shark, or bear rather, is still on the ground below them, waiting to pounce. Babs Issue 2, the one you said I could do without. In town, Mork the Orc and his friends see the Ivory Knights of Unblemished Virtue really making themselves at home and kind of taking over the town for themselves. The Ivory Knights have also hung up their flag across the city. Their flag, to me, is kind of reminiscent of the Nazis' SS lightning bolt symbol. So these Ivory Knights are clearly meant to be some kind of hate group in a way. They have set up their headquarters in the local bar. Some of Mork's friends are skeptical of the Knights, but not Mork. Mork, he says, "This is exactly what we need around here. Order, not chaos. Someone to protect the rights of the common dude, not leave them at the mercy of wandering bums." Like, what do you guys want? Ivory Knights of Unblemished Virtue, or some girl dressing however she pleases and messing up innocent dudes who object? Mork's friends argue a bit, but then they just say, "I think she left town anyway." Mork to this says, "Right, but there'll be more." Mork's friends reply, "You said she was a magical construct in the service of the deep realm." Mork to this says, "She was. Will you just listen to me for a moment? There are things that we're due as ordinary dudes, but that we can't get because the playing field isn't level. Gold, due to the laws protecting all the little freaks that mine it. Magic, apparently beyond our mortal ken. And babes, because of some spell that was cast years ago, so all the bitches find us repulsive. Well, I'm tired of eating oink swill and getting told to screw off by whores who don't know their place, and ending up with a giant wrist because I don't know any wanking spells. I say screw that shit. And when it comes to shit, these are the guys to fuck it." Elsewhere, Babs is in the forest. The bear finally went away. She is washing herself when she gets interrupted by someone that seems like an undead ghoul. The ghoul startles Babs, but he just explains he just wanted to talk with her. So the ghoul is named Jerry, and his wife is named Emma. Jerry asks if Babs knows the way to a place called West Southshire. Jerry explains, "We're supposed to manifest there next full moon, you see. Yes, we got cursed to wander the mortal lands forever by this dick of an archmage." Babs responds, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Those guys suck about 10 leagues a cock. I mean, I've got a vial of the dick enlargement potion, but no one's gonna buy it in case there's some god-awful built-in side effect. Anyway, where you wanna go, that's about 3 days walk that way. Listen, you guys aren't gonna do anything when you get there, are ya?" The ghouls answer, "All we do is show up and scare people, which we're not all that keen on, to be honest with you." The undead woman, Emma, asks Babs, "Listen, I've been dying to ask, how do you get your hair like that?" Babs explains she cuts it herself, and then she got this conditioner elixir from some silk elves. Emma comments, "Ooh, it's so shiny." Jerry, exasperated, says, "Oh man, we're gonna be here for hours." Emma tells Jerry to shut up. Us girls have to stick together. Babs offers Emma some of her conditioner. Emma is very interested, but as she strokes her own hair, some of it falls right out of her head, and she realizes, it would probably be a waste on her. The ghouls eventually thank Babs for the info and they head on their way. Meanwhile, back in town, Tiberius Toledo called a meeting for all the townsfolk to hear him give a speech. Tiberius addresses the crowd and says, "My friends, for that is how I stand before you as your friend. You may not know me, you may not have heard of me, but we will be getting to know each other well. I am Tiberius Toledo, and I have come to give back what was taken from you. You were all victims of a great injustice. For too long now you have suffered a mighty serpent in your bosom. The incomers and the weirdlings, the half-men, the blow-ins, you welcome them to your community, give them your hospitality of your hearths and homes, and how do they repay your welcome? They swindle you and steal from you. They plot to supplant all you hold dear, your customs, your gods, your very language, with all their own inhuman ways. Mork and his friends are listening to this speech. One of Mork's allies asks, "Does he mean us?" Mork responds, "Different inhumans, shut up." Tiberius Toledo continues, "Who are they anyway? What other worlds, other realms do they come from? What are their intentions towards us? What happens when they worm their way into every aspect of our lives, these other folk? I say, let's not find out the hard way. I say, enough. The Ivory Knights of Unblemished Virtue and I have done much good work across the land. In partnership with good folk such as you, we have driven out the dwarf, ejected the elf, and given the halfling the heave-ho." One of the townsfolk questions, "If we get rid of the dwarves, who's gonna mine all the silver up at Fobbin's Hollow? And without the hobbits, how will we, Okay, bad example, but you know what I mean." Tiberius responds, "Good question, citizen, and one I shall be addressing with the members of your council this very eve. My knights and I look forward to a long and fruitful friendship with you noble folk, working together for a better future." Mork is very excited by the prospect of these knights. Mork feels that if he assists the knights and supplies them information, through the knights, Mork can finally get revenge on all the people that wronged him, all the people that are keeping him down, and stopping him from getting rich and having a great life and getting girls. Yes, Mork thinks these knights are the answers to all of his prayers. Elsewhere, Babs is traveling on, and she meets a young man named Culpepper. Culpepper's kind of a dweeb, though, kind of a loser. He's always pontificating about this or that, and speaking in very flowery language. Eventually they part ways, and Culpepper says to Babs, "Farewell, my lady. I hope 'twill not be long ere we stand together once again. Our blades united, our spirits as one together in the battle eternal for all that is just. We have journeyed long this day, dear Babs, but thy company has made the hours pass like mere minutes." Finally, Culpepper and Babs part ways, and Culpepper travels off with his flaming sword. When Babs is finally alone, she talks to her sword, Barry, and she says, that poor prick. He had lamp oil on his sword. You can smell it. Ugh. Barry chimes in saying, "That guy's such a douche." Babs continues, "A bunch of Uruks got him a while back, kicked his ass, and ate his horse. And one of them took a dump on his helmet." Babs, she then reflects, and she says to Barry, "Barry, what if I end up like Culpepper? What if I end up, like a loser? Or like poor Emma this morning, going on and on forever, just wandering?" Barry, trying to make Babs feel better, says, "You won't end up like Emma. You don't get cursed like that unless you've done some serious shit." Babs to this says, "Don't you? All you have to do is run into the wrong magus and just have one bad day." Anyway, Babs changes the conversation. She explains her plan. She's gonna go up to Fobbin's Hollow. Apparently the dwarven security's not what it used to be. And she's gonna try to steal some stuff. Back in the town, in the bar, the knights are having themselves a big feast. And Mork the Orc decides to introduce himself to Tiberius Toledo. Mork presents Tiberius a parchment with some helpful information Tiberius can use. Tiberius is skeptical at first, but then when he reads it, he sees some value here. He asks, "Is this accurate, what the parchment says?" Mork responds, "It is, my lord. I swear it is, but it is but one fragment of all the information we have collected." Tiberius asks, "And how might I test that bold assertion?" Mork responds, "With great ease. Just a day's travel and a dozen of your knights, my lord. You have nothing to lose." So Mork invites Tiberius and some of Tiberius's men to come back to their hideout so he can share with him all their information. Elsewhere, over at Foggin's Hollow, the mine where the dwarves work out of, Babs stealthily makes her way inside, and she is surprised to find it abandoned. Not only abandoned, all the silver has been taken too. Babs walks through the mine shaft and comes out the other side, and then she gets annoyed. She talks to her sword and says, "God damn it, I hate this shit. I can already tell how this is going to go. I can smell it a mile off and I hate it. I'm trying to get rich beyond my wildest dreams, not to end up on some frickin' adventure." So Babs reluctantly wants to find out what happened to these dwarves, and also see if she can maybe get some of their silver too. Babs, Issue 3, Quicker Than a Ray of Light. Having just left the mine, Babs is soon attacked by the Ivory Knights of Unblemished Virtue. They fire an arrow at Babs, but she catches it, no problem. She then asks the knight that fired it, "Oh, is this yours? Do you want it back? I mean, you're the one with the crossbow and everything, unless there's someone else around here who might have lost it." Another knight tries to sneak up behind Babs, but she swings her sword and decapitates that knight. The guy with the crossbow is trying to frantically reload another bolt into it, and Babs still questions him. "What's the matter there? Cat got your tongue?" Finally, the crossbow guy fires again, but Babs swings another knight in front of her, blocking the bolt. She then asks again, "Now seriously, does this belong to you, or what?" Elsewhere in the forest, at Mork the Orc's hideout with his friends, that they refer to as the Dude's Den, dudes spelled with a Z, Mork is showing Tiberius Toledo around. Mork the Orc explains that him and his colleagues have been researching all the fantastical creatures in the land, from myths and legends to tavern tales, from the boasts of feasting warriors to the darkest and most ancient rumors. Mork and his allies have amassed a gathering of every scrap of info in this library here, and they've cataloged everything and determined their strengths and weaknesses, which will be very helpful to Tiberius. As Tiberius scans the library, he sees some of the books and he reads the titles. Tiberius says, "Lesbian Balrogs in Heat, Red Hot Gnomes, Dragon Slayer Strap-On, The Adventures of Dong Bomadil, The Eighth at a Time Crimes of Schlob." So Tiberius seemed to find Mork and his friends' porno books, but Mork steers Tiberius away from those. He says, "My lord, please, not those. This is what I brought you to see." Mork points to another section in the bookshelves. He says, "You and your knights make war upon the other folk, and rightly so, and we can give you the means to find them, and when you do, how to combat their foul and cunning ways." Tiberius questions, "How exactly?" Mork answers, "It's all here, Lord Tiberius. All the secret knowledge we have acquired, the precise powers of every spellcaster, the exact strength of every mighty barbarian, the last known sighting of the boatmen on the Golden River, the location of the caverns holding the Dark Elves' treasure cache, and many more things. All our lives we have heard the tales of daring and mystery that echo down the ages. Well, we tell them and we retell them and pick them apart and examine them from every angle." Tiberius, hearing this, asks, "Where on earth do you all find the time?" Mork answers, "Well, we really don't have an awful lot else going on. Look, let me show you how it works." Mork pulls out one of his scrolls and says, "Alright, as an example, let's say you're going after the dwarf elves of Fagagorn Valley. Dirty little half-breeds, yuck. Well, we know they've been involved in at least a dozen battles and at least one war, and they've lost most of them, but they haven't been wiped out, and they still have their homelands. So we give them a 4 out of 10. You see, they're not bad in combat, they're like a 6. but dwarf magic's bullshit and it cancels out a lot of the elvish stuff, so only a 3 there. Mork, he continues talking and goes through a few more examples. Tiberius Toledo, he is kind of impressed. He says, "Alright, I get the idea. You know, I can see how this could actually be handy, even if it does indicate a vast and troubling disorder of the spirit, one of compulsion and perhaps 2 obsession. But your previous tip panned out, so let's see what else you can do. Take all of it over to the tavern, you're working for me now." Tiberius then leaves. Mork is very pleased. The rest of Mork's allies are a little skeptical though. They ask Mork, "Are you certain about this?" Mork confidently answers, "Of course I am." Back over to Babs. She is interrogating the crossbow guy. She has shoved the crossbow up his nose. She wants some information on the dwarves. She's contemplating rescuing them, figuring there might be a reward in that. Babs, through her interrogation, gets a little bit of information. But as the questioning is going on, Barry, Babs' sword, is a little upset. See, Babs kind of stuck him in the ground while she was fighting the others when she didn't need him anymore. And Barry's pissed off about that. He yells at Babs, "Babs, Babs, I've been waiting for you to wake up to the fact that you stuck me in the ground again. Like I'm a fucking shovel or something. I mean, I've told you before." Babs replies to Barry, "I stick you in people." Barry answers, "It's the principle of the thing. Come on. It's dirty and demeaning. I mean, how would you like it if someone just..." Babs shuts Barry down, saying, "Oh, for God's sake, Barry. It's convenient, okay? I've got other things to worry about. I can't always be thinking about my big snowflake of a fucking sword." As the two of them were arguing, the guy with the crossbow stuck up his nose, well, he kind of trips and lands in such a way that the crossbow gets shoved up higher, and it goes through his brain and out his head, and now he's dead. And Babs can't question him anymore. Babs finally removes Barry from the dirt, and Barry is indeed kinda dirty, and this upsets Barry some more. Back over to Mork and his pals and their cataloging. They have done some research on the barbarian Babs. They are trying to determine what score she should be. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10. So Mork's allies explain that her name is indeed just Babs. That's basically it. Babs, she usually tends to fly under the watchtower. She gets in, gets what she's after, and gets out. One of Mork's friends says, and there's another snag, is that the records on her aren't the best, as she tends to kick a lot of ass, and some of the guys writing this stuff down don't like to give her the credit. Possibly because, maybe they're guys. They then go through some of the feats that Babs supposedly pulled off. Like, apparently she killed a battle ogre out in the Winterlands. Then she signed up as a contracted blade and ended up riding war dragons for the Gorians in the Obsidian War. Unfortunately, she crashed 3 of them before she got fired. The Gorians wouldn't let her out of the contract until she paid for all the dragons she crashed, but Babs insisted they look at the small print, and eventually they saw her side. Mork and his allies then go through various other stories of various feats that Babs pulled off. Babs even defeated some other creature that they gave a score of 9 to. So at the end of the list of Babs' accomplishments, they have to decide what score to give her, and Mork isn't sure. He's kind of embarrassed that Babs beat them earlier, but he has to admit, she kinda does seemingly deserve a high score. Anyway, back over to Babs. She slaughters many more ivory knights of unblemished virtue. I particularly liked how this guy's face was sliced off vertically like that. Pretty cool. Babs manages to kill some more knights and find the dwarves that were kidnapped earlier. Babs frees the dwarves, and then she asks about a reward. Like, what about all that silver that the dwarves are always mining? The dwarves explain that when the knights kidnapped them, they sent the silver on up ahead of them. So, the silver's gone, but the dwarves are gonna get back to work, and they tell Babs to come back in a month or 2, and they can give her some of a reward then. The dwarves then head out. Babs asks, "Well, I mean, can I get an IOU or something?" The dwarves respond, Oh, no need for that. If you can't trust a dwarf, who can you trust? Aye, our word be bond. With the dwarves gone, Babs talks to her sword, Barry. Barry sarcastically comments, well, that was worth it. Babs answers, I suppose I could go after the silver that these fast riders took off with. But at this point, I don't know. Babs, she then notices that her friend Izzy's horse is here, and the knights seem to have it. So Babs all of a sudden becomes concerned about her friend's well-being. Babs asks two of the knights that she tied up, hey, where'd you get that horse? The white one. That's my friend's horse. She had him for years. There's no way she'd sell him. Babs interrogates the knights some more to try and get answers. Elsewhere, we see Mork and his dudes are carrying all of their knowledge and various books that they've collected over the years, and they are bringing it back to the Ivory Knights. Mork's allies are still skeptical. They ask Mork, are you absolutely sure we should be giving Tiberius all of our shit? Mork replies, we're not giving it to him, we're just moving it over to his headquarters so we can work together with him to rid the land of the Deep Realm. I mean, what was the point of all those years of research if not to eventually put it to use? Mork's allies are still skeptical. They want to know what they themselves are actually going to get out of this deal. Mork responds, am I the only one with vision around here? We get the protection of the Ivory Knights, so no one can piss all over us anymore. We get to be part of something where we can make a difference, instead of looking from the outside, never getting an invite to the party. For once in our lives, we matter. Mork's allies sarcastically say, so basically you're saying we get to hang out with the cool kids. Mork responds, oh, shut up. Elsewhere, later on, Babs arrives at some docks. This is where the knights gave her a tip that her friend Izzy has been taken here. Barry the Sword asks Babs, did you really have to cut off that knight's head? Babs answers, you shouldn't have said that shit about Izzy. Anyway, it scared the other guy into talking. Barry answers, yeah, for about 10 seconds before he died of a heart attack. You're so violent sometimes. Babs retorts, you realize you're a talking sword, right? Anyway, the knights told Babs something about Izzy being taken here and being carried on a boat, and the boat was called the Bark Marillin. When Babs finally sees the boat, she is slightly annoyed. Babs comments, oh shit, oh fuck, it's elves. The boat is run by elves. Babs, Issue 4, True Blue, baby, I love you. Babs is on the ship with the elves, and she is annoyed by all their stupid singing. Also, her sword Barry got seasick and is puking over the side of the ship. How a sword gets seasick, Bab doesn't even understand. Well, Babs has to ride with these elves for 10 days until they arrive at their destination in a place called Dannymalt. Later on, Babs is drinking on the ship by herself, and she's talking to her sword. Babs has talked to various members of the crew, and they don't seem to be sharing any information regarding an arrangement with Tiberius Toledo, although she's pretty sure they're lying. And the elves also haven't been forthcoming about seeing anyone that looks like Izzy, or even about the mines or mining. Barry is worried that Babs is maybe not being very tactful. He asks, you're not just going around asking, hey, are you boys shipping prisoners to Dannymalt for someone called Tiberius Toledo? You're not just saying that, are you? Babs replies, I'm being careful enough. Look, these elves tend to think they're above the rest of us. That's why they'll do business with pretty much anyone. Doesn't matter to them what us lesser races get up to. They're not just gonna come out and tell me they're obviously making money here, but do they give a shit about me asking questions when all they do is smile like the condescending pricks they are and gaze serenely at the horizon? Just as Babs says that, she is greeted by an elf who says, my lady, I am Rondavar of the Surging Waves, ship's captain, and the pleasure is all mine. My crew have spoken of your beauty, but even the silken tongues of the elven folk could not capture your fair form. There are ladies and there are queens, and there are nymphs of the ocean deep, and the goddesses who walk from star to star, and then, Babs, there is you. I know you sail with us in search of answers, mortal maiden. Tomorrow night, when the full moon shines forth, for Zelbreth's Eve, I am hosting a gathering in my cabin. Please join me. There is naught worth knowing in the world of which such folk cannot speak. And tell the lunar princess soars in the blue sky, sweet Babs. I bid you anon. Once this Rondovar leaves, Babs is actually pleased. She might get some answers. Barry asks Babs, "You're not falling for that line of shit, are you?" Babs responds, "I'm not falling for anything. It's just that, it could be worth going along to this thing. It's not like he was being a dick or anything." Barry to this says, "He was being a massive one." Is it that easy to butter you up, Babs? And I mean, mortal maiden, you can fuck right off with that shit. It's been a long, long time since you were a maiden. Babs responds by making fun of Barry being sick earlier, saying, "Oh, boo-hoo, I'm feeling a bit seasick, help." As Babs and Barry talk, a mysteriously cloaked figure with a toad on his shoulder studies Babs and reads some parchment. Elsewhere, back in town where Tiberius Toledo and his knights are, they are marching a whole bunch of other kind through the town that they have captured. Dragons, dwarves, hobbits, weird creatures, and whatnot. Mork is pleased. He says, "We did that. It couldn't have happened without us. We gave Lord Tiberius and his knights the secrets they needed to defeat this rabble. Every runt, every mongrel, everyone whose face doesn't fit. And now we get our just reward. Think about it, my dudes. The pick of the babes, the treasure, the land, finally the respect we're due." Mork's friends are still skeptical, though. They say the babes are being sent up north along with everyone else to work in these mines Tiberius runs up there. All the treasure they took is being loaded up too, and no one said anything to me about land. Back on the ship with Babs and the elves. Babs decides to check out this party thing that she was invited to. At first the party seems to be going okay, but then the elves all start taking off their clothes. And then before you know it, they're all in some weird kind of lingerie thing, and then a massive orgy breaks out. Babs decides that this is probably a good time for her to leave. Babs goes outside and is standing on the deck of the ship. There, she starts talking to a beautiful elf woman. The elf woman asks if Babs knows her. Babs, she remembers the stupid songs that the elves were singing earlier, and they were actually singing about this particular elf and her beauty. Babs says, "You're her, aren't you? You're the chick in all the songs." The beautiful elf woman answers, "I travel incognito with the sea elves that I might hear what intrigues fly from land to land." The elf woman then tells Babs, "Babs, I know you search for your abducted friend. Tiberius Toledo is a blight upon the waking world. If his schemes are indeed as I expect they are, he must be stopped." Babs, concerned, now asks, "Hold up a second. What do you know? What's happened to Izzy?" The beautiful elf woman answers, "The only certainty my spell revealed was the love you feel for her. I sense your quest proceeds along a wisely chosen path, but more than that I cannot see at present. However, there is a ritual we might perform, an ancient incantation to provide the deepest insight." Bab is interested. She might get some more information here. She says, "You're on, let's do it." The elf continues, "It's a blend of elven sorcery and enchantments, older still. Some first spoken at the dawn of all things, so it is said." Babs, she's wondering where this is going. Then all of a sudden, the beautiful elf woman pulls out what appears to be like a strap-on. The elf woman then starts explaining to Babs that in order for this incantation to work, one of them has to, wear the... Babs, she just cuts this woman off and comments to herself, "Oh, for fuck's sake, how did I not see this coming? I mean, what is it with you elves?" As Babs and this elf woman talk, all of a sudden, some bubbles are flying in the air. Green bubbles. Babs seems to recognize them. She yells, "Get down! Fizz poppers!" The elf woman doesn't understand though, and all of a sudden one of these green bubbles flies over to the elf woman, and it lands right in her face and it pops. And when the fizz popper pops, it all of a sudden melts the elf woman's face right off until she is just a skeleton, and she dies. Babs, she then starts running. She yells, "Ah! Some prick of a spellcaster's got me locked up." And we see the mysterious cloaked figure we saw moments earlier. Well, he has a toad in his hand, and he is squeezing the toad and squeezing these fizzle pop bubbles out like a weapon. Babs manages to avoid the bubbles, sneaks around, and then she grabs a barrel and smashes it over this wizard's head. Babs then ties this wizard up and has him hanging by a rope over the water. Babs starts interrogating the wizard. She asks why he was attacking her. The wizard answers that Tiberius Toledo hired him to stop anyone that was getting nosy. Babs questions, "And what about these mines of his?" The wizard answers, "They're 10 leagues northeast of port. Carcafax, you can't miss him. He's got like hundreds of people that work there." This slave camp in the mines is most likely where Babs' friend Izzy has been taken. The wizard continues, "Tiberius is running a con on all of the outland settlements, all the little places, where the yokels are." As the interrogation continues, the wizard attempts to do a spell on Babs. But eventually, the wizard is killed by a shark that jumps out of the water and eats him. The wizard refers to the shark as a sea bear, which is a joke because earlier they called the bear a land shark. I thought it was kind of funny. Several more days go by, and finally the ship with the elves lands at port, and Babs starts walking towards these mines that she heard about. Babs tells her sword Barry everything that happened, how the elves are swingers for one, and if they hadn't been so busy tossing each other's salads, they might have heard her throwing their queen over the side. It saved her from having to explain what happened. Barry, learning all this now, says, "I wondered why you stayed in your cabin for the rest of the voyage." Babs to this says, "I didn't like the way the rest of the elves were looking at me, almost as if they knew something. I'll tell you what, when we find Izzy, we're going home a different way." As the two of them ride on, Babs is eating these chips that the elves gave her. She kind of became addicted to them over the trip. As Babs keeps eating these chips and riding her horse, something about these chips that the elves gave her must have been mystically enchanted somehow, and Babs starts falling asleep. And sure enough, she passes out, and her horse rides her right into Tiberius Toledo's knights. With Babs asleep, the knights kidnap her and they bring her to the mines to toil with the rest of their new slaves. When Babs wakes up, she is being whipped by a cyclops. The cyclops yells at her, "Work or die!" Babs in chains does not have much of a choice. Babs, she looks in the mines, and she sees her friend Izzy is indeed here, as well as that guy, Culpepper, that was annoying her earlier with the flaming sword. Culpepper asks, "Good Lady Babs, what hast befallen thee? What brings thee to such straits so dire?" Babs, looking a little disappointed, answers, "Well, as a matter of fact, I'm here to rescue you. Or, Izzy, anyway." Izzy sarcastically responds, "Gotta hand it to you, Babs. Good so far." Babs, issue 5. You look a little sad, boy. I wonder why. Back in town, Mork and his allies are talking. Mork's one friend that had the cup shoved in his mouth that's stuck there, well, now he has a cup shoved up his ass. Mork's friends say, "Oh, Look at what they've done to him. Mork says, who did this? The others say, who do you think? Those ivory knights. They thought it was funny, the pricks. Mork, trying to defend the knights, says, how do you know they weren't trying to help, like equalize the pressure or something? Mork's friends respond, we know they weren't trying to help because they were laughing their balls off. We do all this shit for them, and where's it gotten us? They treat us like a bunch of losers. Mork, trying to calm his friends down, says, I'll talk to Tiberius, alright? I'll get it straightened out. I'm gonna go talk to him right now. Mork goes into the tavern to attempt to talk to Tiberius, and he gets shut down by one of the other knights, saying, he's busy, come back later. Mork, returning disappointed, finds his friends have abandoned him. Back over in the slave mines, Babs is talking with Izzy and the dwarf Rudolph Stormflagon. Rudolph explains that Tiberius Toledo, the leader of the knights, he's just in it for what he can get. All the talk of the others and the outsiders is just for stirring up the yokels. Really, Tiberius will do business with anyone. Babs chimes in, like those elves, I suppose. Rudolph continues, his ivory knights are a bunch of bastards, but they actually believe in that supremacist stuff. But not so much Tiberius. Everyone gets to be happy. The rednecks are rid of the undesirables. The knights get to push them around. And Tiberius, as you can see, is furnished with fresh labor for his diamond mine. Only when it's too late, when all the shit workers are gone and the knights have eaten and drunk the place dry, does the penny drop, if it ever does, and Tiberius ups stakes and moves on. Izzy asks how Rudolph knows this. Rudolph explains, I was his master magician. Culpepper asks the dwarf, but thou came to see the light and turned thy back on thy villain's service? Bravo, good sir! Though things seem dire, together we shall escape this. Rudolph sadly explains, no, a tavern strumpet got me drunk and stole my spellbook. After that, I wasn't much use to him. They all continue working hard in the mines, and later that night, when they finally get some time to rest, Babs starts speaking of a plan to get out of here. Because if they don't get out of here soon, they are going to be worked to death. Babs sees one of the Cyclop guards nearby. She says they need to get the keys off of him. He's the head guard. Also, that's my sword he's taken a shine to. We see the Cyclops orc using poor Barry to pick his nose. Izzy asks Babs' plan. Babs explains, well, Cyclops are notorious horn dogs, right? Babs is coming up with some sort of plan where either her or Izzy will tempt the guard. She says, I'm not saying actually do anything, I just mean quick flash of the girls to get his attention, and when he comes over, whammo. Culpepper, he does not like this plan. He says, good ladies, I prithee desist. Mine ears can take no more such awful words as these are not fit for thy sweet mouths, thy innocent, womanly tongues. Sooner would I die than allow thee to follow such a grievous path. By my troth, I would bear any sacrifice before I, Sir Colin Culpepper. Rudolph interrupts and says, wouldn't work anyway. I know that Cyclops. He's not into girls. He's into guys. So now, Babs and Izzy look at old Colin Culpepper over there. He said he would make any sacrifice to save their virtue. Culpepper then begins to beg. He says, nay, wait, sweet Lady Babs, good Lady Izzy, I beg of thee, cease. Do not pursue this course. Surely we can find another way. I have kept my virtue pure, as doth befit a knight. Never have I even known a woman's touch, fair ones. Let not my magic moment be like this, please. Back over in the town, Mork the Orc is finally talking with Tiberius, and he starts complaining about how they're being treated. Tiberius, used to this from all the other times he's kind of screwed over the townspeople, says, you sound exactly like the farmers, and the counselors, and the rest of the bigwigs. Who's going to pick the taffy gits at harvest time? Who's going to work the high pasture? Why haven't we heard from Foggin's Hollow? The bottom's going to drop out of the silver market. I mean, you wanted to rid of everyone, didn't you? Make contingency plans? Mork explains, well, no one really wanted to do that sort of work, and only the dwarves can fit in the mine to begin with. I mean, they dug it. Tiberius to this says, buyer's remorse, eh? Mork, he explains, it's just, this isn't how I thought things would be. I guess I thought life was going to get better. We helped you, sort the place out and get rid of the others, but it doesn't seem to have done us any good. Tiberius, bored, asks, what good did you think it would do to you as a matter of interest? Mork explains, get rid of the deep realm, so we're not on the outside anymore, not just seeing all the stuff we dig get changed or taken away from us, so that we get a say, and we'd also get, the gold and the land and the babes as well. Tiberius tells Mork, the orc, you got what you wanted, but somehow you didn't. Would you like a little piece of advice? We'll be moving on soon. More good work to do elsewhere, And once we're gone, things will be in a state of flux. Most notably the economy, now that it's had a couple of components removed. And that's the time for an enterprising fellow to take things he wants. Mork, a little worried, asks, take? Tiberius says, I suggest at sword point. Mork continues, but everyone else is bigger and stronger than us. We thought that, you'd be here to grant us things. Mork, he says, but, what about the babes? If we're not in with you guys, they're hardly likely to fall in love with us. Tiberius gives a stern look and says, you're serious, aren't you? I told you, at sword point. Mork, he says, we can't do that. This is messed up. This is bullshit. Tiberius tells Mork, remember I said you sounded like the farmers? They're milling around outside, all with the same looks on their faces that you have. They've come too far down the road with me to turn back now. It would mean doing something absolutely impossible. They would have to admit they were wrong. Back down in the slave mines, Colin Culpepper, he is seemingly horrified by what he did to sexually entice the Cyclops. Culpepper, looking at his hands, says, smite off these hands! These hands that hath touched, that hath done what cannot be spoken. Babs, standing over the dead body of the Cyclops, tells Culpepper, keep it down, the other guards, dude. Culpepper on his knees, he begs, saying, nay, I dishonored my knightly profession, desecrated my very flesh. Sweet Babs, I beg of thee, take up thy blade and do what must be done. Smite off these hands that are no longer hands, but cursed withered talons. These hands that have seen too much. Izzy tells Culpepper it could have been a hell of a lot worse. Culpepper just continues, it was unmanly, it was not gallant. Would that I faced some mighty dragon or quested in search of a sacred relic. Anything else? Babs, now reunited with Barry the Sword, discusses what went down. Barry complains, saying, that thing had me up its nose. It was disgusting, demeaning. So finally, when Babs and her companions have composed themselves, they begin sneaking through the mine. Most of the guards are asleep for the night, so they try not to wake them up, and with the keys, they unlock all the other prisoners in the mine, and they all slowly make their way outside. Once all the prisoners have escaped the mine, Babs is attempting to leave, but one of the guards then wakes up. So then, Babs has to fight a whole bunch of them. She ends up trying to run as fast as she can. She exits the mine, and she yells for her allies to make the mine cave in. And they do just in time to trap all the guards inside and crush them with fallen debris. Babs, just escaping with her life, comments, glad I didn't murder them while they were sleeping. This was so much more humane. Later on, Babs and her companions are riding. Babs is a little disappointed that all the people they saved just kind of fucked off, but it is what it is. When discussing what to do next, Babs explains her initial plan was to just free Izzy and then go back to trying to get rich quick. But the more she's been hearing about this douchebag Tiberius Toledo and what he's been up to, and also the guy basically enslaved her and her friends, well, Babs can't let that stand. She wants to get some revenge and stop this guy. So, that is what she will do next. Babs asks the dwarf, that's also a magician named Rudolph Stormflagon, if he can use a spell called Zoombats to get a message to some people she knows out in Southshire. Rudolph says he can. Babs then begins materializing her plan. Meanwhile, back in the town, Tiberius Toledo and his knights are preparing to leave. Tiberius on his horse addresses the crowd and tells them to contain their gratitude. Your thanks are unnecessary. It was enough for me, Tiberius Toledo, to serve as your humble servant these few weeks, to scourge your lands of the others that would have brought you low. Until we meet again, dear friends, onward! Mork and his allies, now disappointed, even Mork himself, are really pissed off at what Tiberius has done. The one little goblin says, I feel like I showed up for pussy and ended up wanking myself raw. Another guy replies, I think the whole town feels like that, dude. Before Tiberius and his knights can leave, though, Babs arrives on her horse gallantly. She yells aloud, Tiberius, turkey fucker! You ass wrangler, you dick cheese connoisseur, you seat-sniffing tonguer of Gollum's septic taint. Tiberius, offended, asks, Who dares? Babs answers, I do, Babs, warrior chick, holder of the dread sword Barramold, kicker of asses, stomper of balls, vanquisher of little bitch-ass motherfuckers. That's you and your fellow knights of the closet, just in case you were wondering. Tiberius looks at Babs and sees her paltry backup of 2 others only, and he draws his sword and prepares to kill her. But then Babs has a surprise. She was brought an entire army of the undead with her. These are the ghoul friends she met earlier, Jerry and Emma. The knights begin to get a little terrified. An army of the damned have come to take them to hell and judge their sins. Tiberius is even a little scared himself. One of the undead soldiers closes in on him and stabs him with their sword. Only the problem is they're a ghost, and as a ghost they can't actually do physical damage, Once Tiberius realizes this, he says, they're ghosts. How about that? They're just ghosts. Babs, realizing the fault in her plans, smacks her head and goes, fuck. Babs, issue 6, the conclusion. Ring through my ears and sting my eyes. Babs takes a swig of alcohol, and then she starts riding her horse full speed towards the knights. She then stands on her horse's saddle, riding it like a surfboard, and then she jumps into the air, diving at the knights. All of a sudden, Mork and his allies watching this become really impressed by Babs. They start commenting, holy shit, dude. And Mork even lets out a, whoa, girls are great. So Babs, she is flying through the air now. She has her sword above her shoulders and she swings down, but then Tiberius Toledo just whacks the sword away. Babs yells shit, and then Tiberius punches Babs in the face. The fight is not going well for Babs. Tiberius is kicking her in the chest, and Babs is down on the ground, and she doesn't even have her sword because Tiberius whacked it away. Mork and his allies watching are saying, oh man, it's not going terribly well, is it? Mork comments, I mean, it's a promising start, but all of a sudden, Barry, the sword, lying in the ground after being whacked away, yells at Mork, hey, fucknuts, over here. Pull me out of the ground here and throw me to Babs before that bucket head kills her. Mork, he picks up the sword, but then he pauses. Is he really gonna help Babs after all the stuff he said about her earlier? I mean, Babs is a girl, and Babs beat him up and embarrassed him and his friends earlier. Barry tells Mork, that's a good boy, now throw me to Babs. But Mork, he goes, I don't know. Barry questions, what are you waiting for, an instruction manual? He's twice her size, you stupid lump of shit. Babs and Tiberius Toledo continue trading blows. Babs, she eventually jumps on Tiberius, and then she starts sucking out of the eye hole in his helmet, and she manages to somehow suck out his eyeball, and then she swallows it, and she says, "I swallowed it. Let's see the mage medics pop that one back in." Mork, he is still holding Barry and contemplating if he should give it to Babs or not. Barry's yelling, "Holy shit on a toast, what's your problem?" Mork answers, "I don't know what to do. I mean, I thought Babs was cool, but he's kicking her ass." Barry says, "Exactly, so throw me to her. I'm her only chance." Mork, he says, "But I don't know if I want her to... I don't know. I mean, things used to be so easy. Guys were dudes and girls were babes, and then it all kind of changed and got messed up, and I thought it would be good to go back to that, and I mean, wouldn't it be better if he just won?" Mork's friends start pushing back on Mork, saying, "Are you out of your mind? Mork, Tiberius Toledo is a piece of shit, and you know that. Give me that sword now and I'll throw it." Mork, holding Barry, tells his friends to back off. Meanwhile, Tiberius, he is getting the upper hand on Babs. He yells at her saying, "Who the hell do you think you are, you jumped up tavern slut? I've got a good thing going and you're messing it up for me." Meanwhile, Mork, still confused, says, "Keep back, get off of me. I don't want this. I just want it to go back to the way it was." Mork's friends argue, "Look at how that asshole treated us, Mork. You think we'll be better with dicks like him in charge?" Barry, he yells at Mork some more, saying, "Come on, shithead, look at her." Mork, he says, "But there's no way she can win." Barry, he replies, "Yes, she can. She can. Just give the girl a chance." We see Babs lying on the ground, beaten bloody. Mork, he finally decides to help. He throws the sword Barry, and Babs, lying on the ground, manages to catch it. And then with the sword in her hands on the ground, she swings, and she manages to separate Tiberius Toledo from both of his feet. Tiberius falls down to the ground in pain, and he starts yelling, "Ah, fuck! Help me, you rabble! Come on, don't just bloody sit there. Am I talking to myself?" Babs, she then crawls on top of Tiberius. She starts wrestling with him. She removes his helmet, and then she grabs that dick-enlarging potion that she got way back in issue 1, and she shoves it down Tiberius's throat. Now, it was warned back in issue 1 that the reason Mork didn't take this potion is he wasn't sure what effect it would have. Would it make his penis big, but like for a mouse, it'll actually be really tiny? Or would it make his penis like massive? Like, massive, like a house or something. Well, all of a sudden, once Tiberius Toledo takes the potion, he screams out in pain, "Ah!" All of a sudden, his penis grows massive in size. The fighting on the battlefield stops. The knights stare up at a shadow blocking out the sun. All of a sudden, Tiberius Toledo's penis, now so massive, it flops out on the battlefield like the size of a tower, crashing down, and it manages to crush almost all of the Ivory Knights of unblemished virtue. Izzy comments, "Holy fuckeroli." Tiberius Toledo, still alive, he says, "Oh God, oh no, I must be in hell." Babs, she finally stands up. She says to Toledo, "Yeah, well, wizards, right? Never trust some prick with an elixir, that's what I always say." Barry asks Babs, "Wait a minute, you're not gonna stick me in that, are you?" Babs, she then points Barry into the side of Tiberius Toledo's massive penis there, and Tiberius bleeds to death, and finally dies. Mork and his allies, seeing this, question, "So, as the experts on myths and sagas and so on, how do you think we should write this one up, boss?" Izzy goes by Babs' side and calls her a crazy bitch. The two of them then laugh. In the aftermath, once everything calms down, Babs talks to the ghost ghouls, Jerry and Emma, and she thanks them for their help. At least it helped buy Babs some time. The knight, Culpepper, he bids Babs and Izzy farewell. He holds his sword called Exenerex, which normally would be lit with flame. But Culpepper says it is no longer on fire, as it knows my shame. Mighty Xenorex, the pure-forged sword of the highborn saints and holy warriors, senses the stain I placed upon my honor when I committed that act so base, so vile, that I never can speak of it again. Not till I have wiped that stain away by great feats and other deeds that do befit my knightly status, shall the fire of Xenorex be kindled once again, and so my quest begins. Until next time, fair ones, Sir Colin Culpepper bids you the adieu. Culpepper then rides off. Babs and Izzy now talk. Babs asks Izzy, "So, is our reward for saving the town in that sack there?" Izzy answers, "No, that's dinner, half a chicken and a turnip, but in a way it is our reward. Brace yourselves. The townsfolk, yeah, they saw me. I tried explaining to them that, Babs got seriously messed up and we both risked our asses ridding them of Tiberius Toledo. They said, well, technically he was leaving anyway, wasn't he? And I said, yeah, having stripped your town of its workforce and made a shambles of your livelihood, he was even leaving with wagon loads of your shit when we stopped him. And they said, right, which now we're gonna need that to get through the winter for that very reason. Also, there's a 60-acre wang lying rotting on their arable land. Babs, disappointed in the lack of reward, says they're ungrateful. Izzy replies, I said if they moved fast, they'd have plenty of meat for the winter, referring to Tiberius's wang. Izzy continues, and they said that I had to be kidding. Mork, all of a sudden, walks over to Babs, and he is holding some flowers. Mork apologizes. He says, I know I was on the wrong side for a long time and I did some stupid things. I know I caused a lot of trouble for a lot of people, but I hope I came out good in the end. I mean, when I threw you your sword, I feel like I kind of joined the right side. I feel I redeemed myself and it felt good to do the right thing. It felt good to be good. It's like I look back on the dude I was who said stupid shit about girls and whatever, and I realized that was the old Mork. And now I'm the new Mork, and you helped me get there. And that's how I know what we really mean to each other. We're soulmates. We're supposed to be together. And I know you're a wandering barbarian, I get that. I know you have to hit the trail, but I want you to know I'll wait for you. I'll keep myself pure for you, no matter how many hot babes come along. They mean nothing to me. I'm yours, Babs. Now and forever yours. Izzy, she secretly laughs behind her horse at Mork's professing of love to Babs. Babs starts riding off, and Mork just continues professing his love, saying, I know it's not a question of looks. I know what we have soars above such things. Even if you weren't the coolest barbarian chick in the world, even if you didn't kick so much ass, Babs, in my heart, you'll always get a 10. As Babs and Izzy ride off, Babs tells her friend, not one goddamn word. Izzy replies, I'm surprised you didn't just knock his teeth out. Babs to this says, well, if I do that, then he just goes back to being an asshole, doesn't he? I mean, he's right, he's learned something. Izzy, shocked, says, look at you all wise and growing as a person and shit. Izzy and Babs then part ways. They're planning on meeting up in a month at a tavern to catch up then. Babs says next on her agenda is to go kick the ass out of some sea elves first. Babs then continues to ride off, talking to her sword, Barry. Barry, mocking Babs, says, so this is Babs' latest triumph, is it? A chicken turnip and a lovesick orc. Why couldn't you have just stayed out of the plains and been raised as a noblewoman? They were gonna marry you off to a king. Babs to this says, screw off, he was 83, and all he did was moan and shit himself. Although I suppose you're right enough. I wouldn't have saddled myself with you, would I? As Babs and Barry continue riding off into the distance, they continue arguing, and Babs goes on her way to perhaps another adventure. And with this, we end Volume 1 of Babs. All right, so that was Babs. Let me go through my thoughts on this one. I thought the artwork was really good by Jacen Burrows in here. It was really bloody and gory at times. The action sequences were great. And then at other times, it was just really fun and colorful. And yeah, solid work on the art, really accentuated the story. I thought the overall story was really compelling. First, we were just introduced to Babs's world, some of her supporting characters, and then we're also introduced to this Tiberius Toledo and what he's doing. And then eventually both of these stories kind of combine, and there is some epic confrontations in here. And it is really kind of on par with some really good Conan the Barbarian stories that I've read in the past, which, by the way, I've covered some Conan here on my channel. Check out my coverage of those. But yeah, this is on par with some of that stuff. Now, beyond the compelling story, I thought this book was also just really, really funny. I liked Barry the Talking Sword and his relationship and back and forth between him and Babs. That was good stuff. Barry had some really good lines in here. I thought Mork was pretty amusing, and his talk of the deep realm and some of the other things going on there. I also thought the dick enlargement joke really paid off. You know, it was teased in the beginning and mentioned a little bit throughout, and it was kind of built up the whole storyline, and then the payoff at the end with the massive dick here, which was way bigger than I expected it would be, and it was so humorous. And it also led to the whole climax of the bad guy being killed there because of it. So yeah, amazing stuff, amazing payoff with that whole bit there. I think throughout, I liked some of Garth Ennis's political commentary in here. So firstly, Mork talking about the deep realm and kind of hating that his heroes like Grislock are being taken over by women. And he believes that this strong man, Tiberius Toledo, that has came into town, will be the guy that will solve all of his problems. And Tiberius Toledo is kind of the Trump analogy here. The strong man coming in and saying he's going to get rid of all the others, everyone that is different. He's going to collect them all and get rid of them. And somehow that is going to make the townspeople's lives better. But really, Tiberius doesn't care about the little folk. He just wants to create a smokescreen so he can profit and get rich himself. And then eventually he's going to skip town. So yeah, I loved some of that political commentary in here. I really enjoyed the overall story. Great art. It was, yeah, really solid stuff. I'm going to give Babs a 9 out of 10. Thank you all for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.